In Chapter 6, we continue our discussion of consumer buyer behavior. That's really what we found back in Chapter 5. When we looked at the price elasticity discussion, we talked about the other elasticities, income elasticity, cross-price elasticity. We really were talking about the way in which the individual changed their buying habits based on changes in very specific situations. Now, this discussion continues to look at buyer behavior. And our question has always been, how do we kind of quantify the way in which people make decisions? How does that rational consumer decide the way in which they're going to spend their money out there in the marketplace? Well, the big topic of this particular chapter is utility, and we talked about utility basically as satisfaction. Satisfaction that you get from buying that pair of jeans, from getting the Big Mac meal at McDonald's, from putting a gallon of gas in your car. Satisfaction that we get from buying these different kinds of things we find in the world around us. In particular, our authors talked about the law of diminishing marginal utility, and it states kind of in a nutshell this: the more of a particular item you get in a very specific time period, the less additional satisfaction you get from one more unit of that good or service. It's kind of a mouthful of a definition. But again, it tells us something that you kind of intuitively know. Now we're asking you to put it in more of a specific kind of terminology to relate to the class. So here's the example that our authors walked through. I think they talked about somebody listening to music. And what they did was put together this table showing the number of hours they spent listening to the radio, for example, and the amount of satisfaction they got from each one of those hours listening to that music. So in essence, if we could hook up little electrodes to your mind and find out how much satisfaction, how much utility you get from each hour of listening to music, we could put it in a nice little table and start looking at the way in which the satisfaction we get changes over time. Been a long week, been a crazy week. You want to forget about everything that happened. You come home, you turn on the radio. The first hour you spend listening, you get a lot of utility, 200 units of utility. What that means is you get a lot of satisfaction because you can just forget about the crazy week that you've had. If you decide to listen to another hour of music, you're still going to get some satisfaction, but not as much as that first hour when you were able to just let everything go. If we follow along here, you see that you get 98 units. Third hour, still satisfying. You still get some good experience from listening to the radio. You can see now, as time goes on, the amount of satisfaction you get from each additional hour of listening to music goes down. That's the law of diminishing marginal utility. Eventually you get to the place at hour number 5 where you really don't get any more satisfaction. It was okay, but really didn't do anything for you. If you are crazy enough to make yourself keep listening, you spend 6 hours listening to the music, you will hit that place where dissatisfaction sets in, or the term you found in our book was disutility. You can see the figure actually becomes negative. The overall experience is becoming less and less satisfying. If you listen to the place where you spend 7 hours in front of by the radio, minus 200. Now, how about something that maybe makes a little more sense? I think about places like CC's Pizza. Have you ever seen this? CC's Pizza, $5.99 for all the pizza you can get. And people take that quite seriously. Oh yeah, $5.99. I'm going to eat a bunch of pizza at the buffet tonight. So what happens? That first trip you take through the pizza bar is really satisfying, right? You didn't eat all day long because you knew that you and your friends were going out for pizza that night. You got 200 units of satisfaction. Second trip to the pizza bar, still pretty good. Third trip, okay. Fourth trip, great. By the time you've had 5 plates full of pizza, you've had enough pizza. You are as satisfied as you're going to get. If you get to that 6th plate full of pizza, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be looking for the Rolaids, looking for the Tums. Katie by the door. If you get to 7 because you're trying to set some man versus food, record for how much pizza you can eat at CC's, you are absolutely miserable. That's the law of diminishing marginal returns. And it works that way for everything. We could talk about going out with your friends on a Friday night and having a few sodas. The first soda you have, pretty good. The second soda, not bad. You get down to soda number 7 and you're miserable. And the thing is, it always works that way, right? The law of diminishing marginal returns tells us this. The more of a good or service you purchase during a particular time period, the less additional satisfaction you're going to get from each additional unit that you consume. So I hope that gives you some basics about the law of diminishing marginal utility. Again, get a hold of your friends or me if you have further questions.